from Spider-Man, commercials for Heelys that I would never own, and Lou Pearlman's ethically reprehensible boy band empire, no singular brand had a greater impact on my upbringing than Nintendo. Their games, marketing, and overall design philosophy reverberated within my young mind like no other, and that conjecture still echoes intrepidly against the concrete walls of my cranium today. Nintendo are masters of appeal, to the point of making a pudgy Italian laborer one of the most instantly recognizable characters in modern history. And as a pudgy Italian laborer myself, I have to say, but their penchant for attractive design is actually only secondary to their most distinguished forte. Indeed, the greatest trick Nintendo ever pulled was hoodwinking all of us into getting into niche video game genres that we absolutely would not have otherwise. You can make this case for a lot of popular franchises that Nintendo have convoked over the years, but I think the most effective example comes from how their iconic Pikmin franchise brought real-time strategy onto a home console in the 2000s, thus spurning a whole new generation of young people toward a genre that never had that much mainstream appeal in the first place. And now that the Wii U's woefully underpurchased Pikmin 3 is getting the Deluxe treatment on Nintendo Switch, there's ostensibly no better time to dissect what an RTS is, how Pikmin makes those ideas accessible, and why accessibility is, despite what the gamers may like you to believe, a very good thing for games. So take it away, my illicit army of Pikmin PNGs. If you had asked me when I was 11 years old to explain a real-time strategy game, I would have said, those boring PC games my neighbor's dad plays, now leave me alone, I'm watching Monster House. But now that I'm a little older and meet the bare minimum qualifications to be considered a writer, I tend to describe them as those cool games my neighbor's dad used to play. He was really onto something there, now leave me alone, I'm watching Monster House. Coined by Command & Conquer creator Brett Sperry, real-time strategy, or RTS, typically refers to games in which players position structures and navigate a multitude of incarnatable units to secure areas of the map, acquire resources, and or complete other objectives, often within a predetermined time limit. Without a doubt, the most popular video game in recent years to match this description is League of Legends, which is technically a MOBA, or multiplayer online battle arena, but it shares a great deal of DNA with traditional RTS games, enough that I think it's fair to say it still fits the bill in this case. The core gameplay of the genre is deeply appealing. These games require players to combine resource management, spatial awareness, and critical thinking skills under the pressure of a ticking clock, and watching your plans play out in real time is exhilarating, especially when compared to the RTS's turn-based sister genre. Even without game-specific systems to escalate the experience, the RTS is unique in its ability to invoke an inherent sense of depth in its escapades. It's baked into the very foundation of the apparatus that makes it the thing that it is. Yet, despite selling enough copies to keep them viable, the incessant clicking, cluttered UI, and bland militaristic motif of a lot of traditional RTS games has historically been a major turnoff for a lot of potential players. Speaking from personal experience, I never thought I could possibly enjoy one of these ugly nightmares because it subpoenas everything I dislike about video games in a single screenshot. That was, of course, until I tried Pikmin. Like most other Nintendo forays, Pikmin cranks the charm to a crushing capacity with a dynamic folktronic soundtrack, colorfully eye-catching visuals, and captivating character designs that capitalize on exuberant animations, clear silhouettes, and strong posing. Not only does this ensure you know exactly where your Pikmin are on screen at all times, but it also forges a connection between the player and their units. If even a single Pikmin gets left behind at the end of the day, I want to set my console on fire and send it downstream on a handmade raft. You really care about these colorful little goobers because they all feel like they have their own personalities, supplanting the idea that these purposeful peons are disposable. However, my absolute favorite element of Pikmin that Nintendo tactfully taps into is the meta-contextual sense of scale. We all like small stuff. Of course we do. Small stuff is cute and interesting, and even the most rigid of RTS games retains the factor in their presentation. Shigefume Hino and company brilliantly decided to double down on this idea with Pikmin's presentation, not only making the Pikmin themselves small to both the player and the contextually average height player character, but making the player character meta-contextually small at only 1 inch tall. This ensures that you're just as engaged with the environments as your player character is supposed to be, and encourages a sense of exploration that's just as interesting as the core RTS gameplay, and man, it just works. Thanks to this framing, I and many others are now willing to dip our toes into a genre that we previously assumed would be inaccessible, and that rules. However, as online has made clear, not everyone feels that way. If you've ever spent any amount of time witnessing or, God forbid, directly interacting with gamers on the internet, you know that some folks are more interested in being in an exclusive club than actually playing the games they claim to so revere. These exhausting individuals bemoan the presence of so-called casuals, or anyone who has not dedicated at least as much time into their common interests as they have, and believe that they should not be considered in the game development process. This, and this is true, because it not only contends that there are right and wrong ways to engage with media, which is flatly absurd, but also suggests that the very narrow definition of the right way to like things conveniently includes them and excludes anyone they don't like. And as much as it pains me to convey, a lot of RTS dads are, in fact, these very same gatekeepers. If a game like Pikmin had never been developed because a bunch of dudes on PC fear a changing social order, then there would be less people interested in the genre at large, which would lead to less of them being developed. Not only because sales would be lower, but people who might have been inspired to get into game development and make the next great RTS might not have had a point of entry that works for them. Plus, Pikmin is an absurdly great game because of how well it addressed some of the shortcomings of its predecessors. And since media is constantly borrowing ideas from other media, consumers would get a worse selection of games to play, and a genre once brimming with potential would wither away in homogeneity. And that absolutely would not rule. I want to watch tiny dudes go places on a big map, and I'd rather be buried alive by Michael Douglas than let a bunch of clowns perpetuating needless conflict take that away from me. Nay, all of us. Nobody benefits from elitism. Better communities are possible, and we deserve them. So in short, Pikmin is the foremost effort of Nintendo to wrangle curious minds into gourmet interests that will influence the rest of their lives, broadening their palates and unlocking a buffet of entertainment possibilities that may soon be overrun by tiny plant people. Watch out. The emphasis on strong visual direction and focused aesthetics creates an RTS that's just as engaging as it is approachable, improving the genre and expanding the potential for future games of all kinds. If you've never tried a Pikmin game before and are interested in seeing what all the hubbub is about, there's a free demo of Pikmin 3 Deluxe available on the Nintendo eShop right now, with all progress transferable to the full game. Give it a try, and if you're into it, send a bunch of tiny fellas to your local GameStop store or GameStop.com. And hey, if you want to hear more media criticism, music, and hastily composed memes from me, head to YouTube.com/Nugatory videos. Until next time.